we are fortunate enough to be joined by Russ Jenkins, who is the Senior Vice President of Product for Fundraising and Engagement here at Bonterra. Russ is working to help nonprofits really maximize their impact through better fundraising and supporter engagement tools. He's a passionate and a believer in doing well by doing good. Prior to joining Bonterra and the product team here, Russ spent 15 years working in product management across a variety of industries, holding several leadership roles. And he currently resides in Raleigh, North Carolina, with his wife, 2 sons, and 1 very massive dog. So Russ, thank you so much for being here. Really excited for you to share the vision and some of our awesome updates here for our tools. So I'll let you take it away.
Okay, very good, Amanda. Thank you so much for that intro. Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to talk to you today about fundraising and engagement, and not just some of the roadmap pieces that we are working on as we speak, but I wanted to also spend a few minutes in talking about the vision and the strategy behind what we're doing for fundraising engagement over the longer term. I won't spend too much time on it, but I think it's really important to understand how we think about the problems that you all and many, many nonprofits are facing, and not just think about them, but think about ways to address and to solve them. And I think that you'll find that we have a very unique perspective on the market. And I think if we kind of level set there, that will then help put into context when I start talking about some of the roadmap items and what we're focusing on this year and next year. It'll help add some context there. So this is the plan for today. Amanda did the intros. We're wrapping that up now. I mentioned the vision, the strategy. I will talk briefly about every action, what we've recently released, but then I'll really talk about what we're actively working on for the first half of this year, and a little bit of what we're thinking about for later on this year. So with that, we will start here. So our vision for Bonterra, our big hairy goal, if you will, is to double the size of the giving pie. And we have an internal rally cry around that, that all of our organizations are aligned to. And we're calling it 3% of GDP by 33. And so what that graph is showing the amount of total US giving as a percentage of GDP. So those blue bars are essentially how much money has been given as a percentage of GDP. And essentially, it's really just stuck around 2.5%. So as the gross national product has grown, as the total wealth in this country has grown, we have not seen a commensurate amount of giving as a percent of total. It's kind of remained like stubbornly stuck. And so all of the functions and departments and how we think about what we want to do at Bonterra over the next 10 years, or really 9 years now, is really about trying to move this needle and all of the things that we can do. So that's where I spend a lot of my time thinking about is the product components and the product pieces that can help us move that needle. So if you kind of click down, and Amanda did a good job of talking about sort of the Bonterra products, kind of in the aggregate and how we came together. The way that we are thinking about ourselves now is not just a collection of products, but we are an ecosystem, and that's actively what we are building out over time. And in that ecosystem, in the middle, in the center of that ecosystem, are social good organizations. So everything that we're doing today and in the long run revolves around building out a social good centered ecosystem. I am going to talk to you today on the box on the right, which is fundraising and engagement, which is my area. I have 2 peers in the organization that focus on strategic philanthropy. Those are what we would call funders. Those could be corporations. They could be high net worth individuals, foundations. And then we also have a group that does impact management as well. And what we are building over time, as I said, is this connected ecosystem where we can start to build around social good organizations and help connect them to funders or other high net wealth individuals, foundations, help them build and manage and measure the impact that they're having, and then turn around and be able to use, as an example, that impact to better apply for grants, as just one of many, many examples that we can build out through this ecosystem. We did a deep dive on the vision, each of these 3 boxes last fall. They're on our website. I know you can't really click on the link there, but they are on our website in the blog section, and we kind of dove into them. So what I'm about to give you is a very brief version of what we went through last November for fundraising and engagement's vision. So first of all, we'll start with the problems that I suspect many, if not most, all of you are keenly and painfully aware of. We have, if you kind of go back in time and you think about maybe like right around the turn of the century, we started to see what modern CRM systems come into place today. I think Salesforce.com was the first one to kind of come out with that. And then what we have seen over the last 15 or 20 years is essentially an explosion of tools that are more and more specific for what they're trying to do, the problems that they're trying to solve. And these tools are collecting more and more data. And so by many estimates, there's at least 10, some up towards 15 times more data that is available than there might have been, say, 15 or 20 years ago. So that seems like a good thing. We have more tools solving more specific problems, and we have more data. Things should be getting better, but they're not. And actually, in many ways of measurement, they're actually getting worse. I've got a few statistics there on the right. I could have many more there, but essentially we have fewer people engaging, fewer supporters. We have up to 40% of donations or people who do donate only donate one time and they never come back again. And this problem is getting worse and worse. So there's a question here, like, what's going on? Like, we have more tools, more data, more solutions. Why is this happening? Why are things getting worse? Why aren't they getting better? So we have a thesis on this that, again, we're building our vision around. And as we think about our roadmap, this is essentially how we're thinking about the problems that we're going after it. First is that this explosion of tools and data is actually making things worse. It's not making things better. Nonprofits are being overwhelmed with data and they don't know how to make sense of it. They don't know what the next best action I should take. I know I have a goal. I need to raise X number of dollars. I have a quota for this quarter of how many dollars I need to raise, or I have an event coming up and I need 50 volunteers. And so far I have 12 that have signed up. I have an awful lot of donors who I haven't heard from and they don't open my emails. There's all sorts of problems like this. And why this is happening and what we can do about it is not, it may be in that data somewhere if you can put it together in a particular way. But it's very difficult to do that when you have sort of this explosion of point tools. We have less people, like fewer staff trying to do more work. So there's sort of this overwork component, this burnout component, which can sometimes lead to like one size fits all fundraising emails, as an example, because I don't know necessarily what message you want to hear versus like Amanda wants to hear. So I'll just send one email and hope for the best there. All the while, demand for services is increasing. But the good news here is that we view this as a solvable problem. People want to be involved. And if we look at particularly like Gen Z and millennials, there's a lot of data out there that says that they would get more involved if they had a more personalized experience. Essentially, what's happening in your personal life or your professional life where you are used to a more personal, tailored experience for whomever you are interfacing with. Gen Zs and millennials in particular want to see that out of nonprofits. And they are loyal to causes. They do want to get involved, but you can see that last bit there from Accenture, which I think hits it. They may be very passionate about, say, food insecurity or environmental, but that doesn't mean that they're necessarily passionate about a particular nonprofit. And so that's where the work comes in, is to show the impact, show the value, and show their value and their ability to make impact towards a cause that they're already interested in. And so just to put a kind of a fine point on this, on how we think the market has changed over the last 20 years. On the left is that essentially like what we would call a CRM-centric model. And I mentioned a few minutes ago, this is like I think Salesforce when I kicked this off in the late 90s. This probably is going to look familiar to some of you. It's essentially like a siloed approach where you have someone that comes in. You can think about it maybe as like the traditional kind of pyramid approach where I show up for the first time and I donate $10. And then I end up in one of those vertical, so the fundraising vertical pipe there. And the goal is to sort of like progress me up and up over time. Now, I may also get involved as a volunteer, but that data may be kind of over here in this other pipe. And so maybe and so if you start to think about the experience that I am receiving, even though I'm one person, I may be giving different messages that don't necessarily align or coordinate with each other. And so you kind of, again, you fall back on some of this one size fits all, this sort of disjointed experience. And it's hard to know necessarily, well, I just volunteered, like that had an impact, but like now the next day you're sort of not thanking me, but asking me for money. And it's very difficult, again, with all of this data and all these point solutions to be able to put that together in a cohesive experience that's unique and tailored to me. Where we think the market is now, and really what we're working towards, is flipping this script on its head. So we are starting to think about and attacking this problem of declining supporter engagement through the lens of supporters themselves. What is the experience that they want to see? How do they want to interact? What are the ways that they want to drive impact and see their impact? And what you find, though, when you interview supporters and you read the research, they're not looking for, and who would be, like one size fits all. They're not looking to necessarily be progressed. And it's kind of a messy relationship, honestly. It can be, I could donate money today, and then perhaps next week just tag a nonprofit on a social media tool just because I wanted to. Or I could say, hey, you know what? I'm going to attend this event on Saturday. Hey, Ashley, I know you're really interested in this. Well, like, why don't you just come with me? Those are all different ways that I can engage and help a nonprofit that doesn't really reflect the model on the left. It reflects the model on the right. Maybe I just lost my job. Maybe I got a promotion. This can impact how much time and how much money I have to donate. And we need to be able to take these things into consideration and build something with this in mind versus trying to kind of fight this messiness, if you will. So what does this actually mean in practice? So this is essentially how we're thinking about or how we see the problem and how we're thinking about attacking it. And so this will be, I promise, the last vision slide, but this is how we in fundraising engagement think about building product and think about solving those problems. And frankly, how like I am measured, for example, over the long run. So this is a very important slide that if you see me give any presentations, typically this one will be in there. And so just to kind of read that from the top to the bottom, the supporter experience platform is we are building a platform that can empower and enable like fundraisers and volunteer coordinators to deliver the best experience to a particular supporter possible. And we believe that if you can deliver that optimized best experience to a supporter, you are more likely to get and drive engagement from them. You are more likely to keep and deepen that relationship over time. But it involves, as I mentioned earlier, thinking about and maybe flipping around how you think about the problem. And so this is how we think about our problem and how we think about building product. The value theme, so this is the value that you would get from every action as we build this out. So reading left to right, recruiting more supporters, hopefully that's obvious. We want to help you and empower you to find and bring into your network the supporters who are most likely to engage with you and bring them in. And that can be all sorts of ways to do that. And we will measure ourselves by the number of supporters added. LTM is last 12 months. I have a bad habit with acronyms. But essentially, like, as I mentioned, like, how will I be measured? Well, how many supporters did I add to your nonprofit over the last 12 months? How am I doing on that? And we can baseline that today and we can measure that over time. Once we have added supporters to your ecosystem, how are we doing getting them to engage with you? How are we deepening that engagement? And so that metric there, actions per supporter, last 12 months, LTM. And an action could be donating money. It could be showing up for a volunteer event. It could be posting on social media. It could be all sorts of things. But we want that number to be high, and we want it to be greater than 1, because as I mentioned earlier, 40% of them do one thing one time and never again. So we want that number to be higher on an annual basis. And then lastly, and I think what's a huge opportunity in the long run, is empowering supporters. Every nonprofit, every group is going to have sort of their power users, the ones that are most committed, the ones that want to bring a friend. They want to volunteer to host a fundraising in their living room. They want to actually work a phone bank or something like that. They want to take on the work because they feel that passionately. And your nonprofit is a way that they can express and get involved through their passion. And so we want to be able to build tools that empower them to do that, because oftentimes the best leads for net new supporters for your nonprofit are your existing ones. And in their network, either professionally or personally, they're highly likely to have friends, family, colleagues who share their values or who share their interests as well. So as we measure that, percent of supporters active last 12 months, supporter-led activities, those are things that I was talking about. It could be a peer-to-peer event. It could be like phone banking or all sorts of things where it's like the supporter that's actually taking on the work. The last piece here that I want to mention then is those investment themes. And so those investment themes is how we think about and how I will frame the roadmap work that we do, that I'll frame later today. And then any other roadmap presentation of mine that you attend, you'll see me framing these investment themes. So these investment themes are essentially, how are we actually going to make these values that you'll experience from the platform? How are we going to make this a reality? Where are we going to focus ourselves, our energy, and our time? I won't read through them all there. Hopefully, they're pretty straightforward. But as I think about investments for this year, which I'll talk about in just a minute, that will be a subset of these investment themes that we are most focused on making progress for this year. All right. So all of that said, let's move on now to every action. So what I want to do is just mention a few things that were recently released. That could be Q4, Q1, Q4 last year, Q1 this year, and then I'll spend probably the bulk of the rest of the time on the current roadmap. So a couple things that we just did is we made some major improvements to how we handle addresses. A couple things there. We added an API, so if you want to edit different types of and integrate with us, we have APIs that support that. We have a very robust suite of APIs that you can use to manage data within every action. Bulk uploading new addresses is also available. And then we made it easier to set a preferred address, to mark an address incorrect, just on an individual basis. And I think through like a more consolidated screen, you'll find it very, very easy to manage either in bulk or on individual addresses. If you are interested or planning on using our advocacy tools, are very, very powerful tools. Our advocacy solutions now can directly target regulations.gov, which is really the government entity putting out requests for comments and other things that they're thinking about for regulations. You can now target that directly, which is a great add to our advocacy tool. We added this ask type here for emails, and this is a step in a larger journey for, again, tailoring and having more specific and personalized supporter experiences. But you can essentially, what this does is it allows you to categorize your email. So like you're sending an email, what is the point of the purpose of that email? Are you asking for, is it a fundraising email? Is it a awareness email? Is it a ask for volunteers email? Like what is the reason that you're sending those? And you can categorize those. Today, that means that you can categorize on them and then report on them. So if you want to know, like, how are my open rates or how are my click-through rates on a fundraising ask type versus some other type of ask type, you can look at that in the reporting, and I think that's very helpful. In the longer term, as we move and we add more machine learning to our email, like create generative email, this will only help feed our models. So if we understand what this email, the intent of your email is, and we can look at how the historical ones have performed, this will be an important component there as we move down the line. And then lastly, membership management. We have a very, very powerful membership management program. It is highly customizable. And we did some work to make it easier to set up on your first time. What we have found is that most of our customers do use this, but what they do is when they're first onboarding to every action, they set it up and then they run it. And then it tends to just run pretty well, which is kind of the point of it. But that first initial setup and making that as easy as possible, particularly as you're generally new to every action, because it tends to be either an onboarding or just past onboarding activity, trying to make that as easy as possible. So fewer screens, fewer clicks, more intuitive, built in some help there as well, so you can see. All right, good. So let's see. Yep. Okay. So this is the same slide that I just showed you 5 minutes ago. And I would love to say that I can do everything at the same time, but that's not the world really I don't think anybody lives in. So where are we focusing ourselves this year? And again, investment themes are where you're going to see us spend the majority, maybe not all, but the vast majority of our roadmap time and towards advancing our value themes and advancing our vision. So the two areas that you're going to see, and I'm getting ready to talk about, is reducing the barriers to engagement. So what are the reasons the supporters may not engage with you? That could be anything from like open but don't click an email to pull up a fundraising page but they don't donate, or they don't donate as much as we would like. Benchmarking that and making improvements there. That's really that reducing barriers to engagement. And then driving intelligent engagement actions. This is a big category and there's lots of work that we have going on here. But this is really empowering you to understand sort of the state of things, like solving that data problem that I was talking about earlier, and having like one holistic view. that gives you a concise understanding, not just of the current state, but maybe even more importantly, what should I do now? What's my next best action? What is the next best thing that I can do to meet my particular goals? Because you're logged into the product for a reason, and we want to help you attain your goals as fast as possible. So that's the two areas that we'll be focusing on, and I'll get ready to talk about. So first, and again, you can see across the top, reducing barriers to engagement. Now we're getting into very specific roadmap items and kind of further away from the vision. We have actually just released within the last week multi-factor authentication, allowing admins to reset that. So if you have a situation where you want someone to reset the password, you don't have to reach out to Bonterra anymore. If you have an administrators, that request can go directly to them, and it's much faster. We have also enabled single sign-on now, so you can integrate with every action using SSO. And VPB is Virtual Phone Bank Connect. And so that is a product that I mentioned earlier in terms of like making calls and doing work on behalf of a nonprofit. We have moved this billing model, which it used to be, well, something else, but now it's a pay-go model. So essentially, you're only going to pay for what you need and what you use. And then as you kind of use up those tokens and you want more, you can just simply buy more. It's very easy to do it. So it's a much easier, much smoother method for engaging supporters. We wanted to make that as easy as possible on you. Furthermore, so more work in our local advocacy. We have expanded access now. You can now target all the way down to local districts, so you can get very specific and fine-tuned in your targeting for your advocacy actions. We had a big week last week, or last 2 weeks. We just also released viewing emails as a web page. So if you want to send an email and then take that email and use it on your website, or you want to use it in social media or something else, you can now do that as well with any email that you send. And then the last piece there is, that's a little bit of tech debt, but I think it's important to call out if you're not aware of it. Google and Yahoo have very specific and much stricter requirements that they have put in place and all bulk senders need to be in compliance by the end of the first half of this year. And that's everything from security, encryption, single clicks, unsubscribes, things like that. Or they are going to eventually stop delivering email. So that is in place also for the first half of this year, so we can remain in compliance. We are doing an awful lot of work with payments as well. We have our own payment platform we call Bonterra Payments. It is through our size and scope, frankly, we have really good terms. We use Stripe is what we're standardizing on. So generally, we can give you very good terms there and take advantage of our large size and what we were able to negotiate with Stripe. We are making it easy and faster than it is today to sign up and start using PayPal. And then with PayPal will also come Venmo. So we already have a variety of payment types that are available today. And so you can think about PayPal as much easier and faster to get up on. And then Venmo will be that new, and that will be here in a month or 6 weeks or so. For event management, if you do have, let's say that you're running a series of events or even one event that has multiple shifts and just kind of making something up on the fly, you have kind of 10 volunteers that you want per shift. Being able to essentially have capacity limits for that 10. So if you do have 10 and someone tries to sign up as the 11th, not allowing them 11 because you really just need the 10, but ideally they don't just move. You can kind of hold on to that 11th and move them in potentially and suggest to them into another shift. So helping you kind of balance and manage your shifts accordingly against your volunteers. And this is another big ask that we've had is reporting on volunteer hours as well, so they can reconcile the number of volunteers and the hours they have. Particularly, this comes into play particularly with volunteers who have either like requirement hours that they need, like a total number of volunteering. We are also in process of updating the look and feel of the homepage. And so this is going to be something that will iteratively come. We're literally starting development on this next week. But what you will see over time is a very personalized experience tailored towards what you are looking to do. So are you a fundraiser, are you a volunteer coordinator, an administrator, whatever the case is. Having an experience when you log in that's more tailored to you And then what we would call wayfinding is helping you kind of find your way, if you will, towards what you're looking to do. And again, if you and I have different roles within the same nonprofit, we are probably logged into the tool for different reasons. And that really means helping you kind of get where you're going faster, and then helping you through that workflow. And again, through intelligent engagement actions, helping you understand the state of your data, the state of the situation, so that you can make smarter decisions along the way. Let's see, targeting your supporters. So this is, again, intelligent engagement actions. We want to, like, we have a really powerful tool called Create a List. You can create a list for almost anything that you can think of and there's an awful lot of filters that go with that. We're going to simplify that, make it a little bit easier to use. And then we also then want to be able to enable you to, so if you have a saved list, it would be great to use that saved list to create new lists that are based on your prior saved list. And so you can almost kind of like view a chain of lists, and you can get very, very specific there. And again, more targeting and more specific and more targeting in your customizations. And then if you want to do more suppressions than maybe like the obvious ones that come to mind, we're going to make that easier for you as well to do specific. Yes, this is the saved list. This is the saved list on top of this one, but I also want these a couple exceptions. So please suppress if they meet these types of criteria. Again, so you get very, very, very specific and targeted in your actions. Lastly, for this section, I think I touched on some of this, adding more filters. We are going to add more custom fields. We have a lot. I think we're getting ready to double the number of custom fields that we have. We're also taking a good look at our reporting. We have very sophisticated reporting tools, and we're going to make it easier to build more complex reports. We get feedback for that. If they don't want essentially some of the built-in reporting and want to build your own, you can certainly do that today, but we're going to make it a little bit easier and then start building in more like BI, that's what I mean by the data visualization. So understanding and visualizing your data, make it easier to build that. And again, all towards the actions of trying to understand what is the state of the situation, and what is the most obvious and kind of logical things that I should do to meet my goals, all sort of in service of that. Just a few more things here. We are also, this is a little bit under the covers, but this will help as well. We are updating our phone model. It's going to be much more specific in terms of what's a cell phone, what's a landline, who has opted in and opted out of receiving text messages, for example. You can tie this back earlier to more specific targeting segmentation that I just talked about. If the best way to reach me, for example, is email, and the best way to reach Amanda is through text, we want to know that. And so as we're building campaigns and we're building sort of that kind of targeted approach, these are very good things to know. And so that's part of what's going into that phone model. We also integrate with NCOA, and we want to make it very obvious that if there are changes that kind of come in on a nightly basis, addresses get changed, giving you a nice, obvious kind of audit log of why some address got changed and what it changed to and what it changed from. And then we are kind of consistently and on an ongoing basis building out our bulk upload and bulk edits and bulk delete processes. And so we're adding bulk deleting contacts and contributions there as well. Okay, and then this is any CRM is going to have an ongoing action to go after duplicates. There's really two reasons that duplicates can get graded, generally speaking. One is they either, or two ways I should say you can address them. One is prevent them from coming in to begin with. And then the second one is obviously once they're here, better and more intuitive understanding of what we think duplicates are. We have built in and are building on our powerful duplicate matching. So we can make recommendations to you on a scale of 1 to 5. We think that this Russ and Russell Jenkins are the same person, and we're going to score that with likelihood of match of a 5. Whereas others we may match on a score of 2 or 3, and giving you more power to be able to see our scoring and then take actions yourself to be able to remediate those duplicates and say, yeah, that's the same person, and let's put that together, or no, they're not the same person. Let's keep it separate. The last piece here that I will talk about is our optimized ask and optimized contribution form. So we have a dedicated data science team at Bonterra who has built some really powerful models Some of those models are implied in what I've talked about earlier in terms of intelligent engagement actions. But one of our most popular and used is what we have branded optimized ask. And so optimized ask is essentially taking all of the information and data that you have about me, and that could be demographic information, it could be psychographic information, and based on everything, giving the dollar amount that is most likely, most predicted for me to want to donate. So basically, like, what's the the most likely amount that I might donate, which would be different than Amanda, which would be different from Ashley, and different from anyone else. So instead of just, for example, a very simple example, sending an email to everyone and saying, "Can you donate $25?" You might have that same email, but I might see, I might see a number that's different than $25. Amanda won't see that, and Ashley won't see that. But we'll all see different numbers. And our internal data shows that this increases fundraising by up to 33%. It's incredibly powerful, and you get that with every action. It's one of the data models that we have. The last piece there that I'll say, and this is kind of an ongoing piece, is that we have highly optimized contribution forms. We do things called A/B testing, where you have sort of the current state, and then we test something new, and we see which one does better. We pick that one, and then we run another test and another test. And through that way, over time, we are constantly optimizing our contribution forms. We have a team that's dedicated to doing that. And the primary way we are measuring that is dollars per form load. So we like however many times this donation page loaded against how much money it brought in, and you can just do the math there and see what that ratio is, and then measure benchmark on that, and then raise it over time. Okay, so I did want to spend a minute or two on Mobilize. If you're not familiar, Mobilize is our volunteer and event management platform. It is pretty tightly integrated with every action, and you can think about this as sort of like the public facing for volunteer, putting out events, collecting volunteers, coordinating with them. Mobilize is really, really powerful, and it goes very, very well with every action. So I wanted to just spend a moment there, and I'll just sort of breeze through these. But a couple of recent releases that we've done with Mobilize is to make it easier to do for administrators to do and manage their group signups. So you can think about, like a captain of a team. And I'm bringing in, again, like I keep using Ashley and Amanda as examples, but I'm bringing them onto my team because we're going to all go volunteer on a Saturday morning, making it easier as me as the captain to be able to manage that process. The Mobilize, as I mentioned, syncs to every action. So if you are using that and you collect data through the Mobilize tool, you will see that data in every action accordingly. And we are it's a pretty strong integration, but we're continuing to build it out over time to make it as seamless as possible to use these two products. And then the last piece here is so what you're seeing on the screen is essentially like if you go to mobilize.us, you will see a list of events that people can sign up for. And so what the team is doing is essentially building out a more powerful search capability and filtering to make it easier to like find and narrow down events that they might be interested in so that they can sign up accordingly. Couple things coming down the line for Mobilize, making events more accessible to Spanish speakers. This is, I think, one of the top requested items in the ideas portal for Mobilize. And so this will be making it easier to build and publish Spanish translated event sign-up pages, which will obviously reach a much broader audience than was there before. There's several quality of life updates that I mentioned, like continuously building out the integration, making checking in volunteers on sites, closing out, making that easier, and then cutting down on any like spam and abuse prevention as well. And so that is it. I'm happy to take a few questions, but that, again, for every action and for Mobilize for the first half of this year is what we are working on.
Awesome. Thank you, Russ. Really appreciate you sharing those updates along with the vision for folks who are interested in kind of checking out what some of these updates might look like, what the current state of the fundraising and engagement every action product looks like. Let us know. We'd love to be able to share that with you. I know Diane had asked to look at some things more in detail about membership and volunteers, et cetera. So this would be the place to go ahead and do that. To let us know so that we can follow up with you on any specific things that you'd like to see within the tool and the product itself. So I'll leave that up while we await any questions. looks like we just got one that came in from Liz, who had asked about making it easier to resubscribe for someone who has unsubscribed before. Is that something that we're thinking about, Russ?
Not for the first half of this year. This has come up, and it's in our ideas portal, so it's definitely something that we're looking at, but not for the first half of this year.
Got it. Thank
Sorry,
you.
Liz.
Um, Doug, as far as ballpark on pricing, that would be something that you would chat with one of our reps about. They'll be able to get you a personalized quote once they chat with you and understand a little bit more about your size, scope, and some of the things that you're interested in. So definitely fill out the poll that's on the screen for that, so that we can get someone in contact with you and they can get that for you. Um, keep the questions coming, folks. I know one thing that comes up quite a bit, Russ, I know in our ideas portal, and when we ran this for some of our customers at the start of the year, and you briefly touched on it, was kind of AI and integrating that. And I know it's like the big looming question for a lot of folks right now and how that's going to be used. So do you have any more insight on kind of where that stands in our vision, how you see that fitting in the future?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the vision is really predicated on powerful, what we would call ML, machine learning models. There is a total of 13 models that we've built out so far for every action. I mentioned optimized ask is probably the most popular one, but we have other models for things like lapsed donors. So as an example, who hasn't donated after some period of time, call them a lapsed donor, that is most likely to re-engage. So you're not just like sending an email to everyone that you feel like is lapsed. Like, who are the ones that are best, are most likely to re-engage? So we have 13 of those models overall. We are looking at large language models internally to help help you get started on like an email. So like generative email, suggesting particular subject lines that we think would be best. So these are sort of like near-term things that we're thinking about. And then in the longer term, we're looking at one of that first value theme that I was talking about in terms of understanding who else out in the United States may match and be the best lookalike to like your top fundraisers or your top supporters, let's just say. Who are those, and where else might they be in the United States, and what is the best way to reach them, and with what message? The other piece that we're looking at there as well, which I think actually goes really well, is in peer benchmarking. So if you are just make it up, if you are a mid-sized nonprofit, and you are focused on like food insecurity, and we have other customers that sort of match your profiles, we can look across and see, you are against your peers, here's how you're doing against some particular categories. And then more importantly than that, like, what are the suggested things that you might want to do or think about within the tool that would help you improve your benchmark and your score there as well. So those are a couple things that we're looking at for later this year or next year.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Russ. Looks, I hear the dog.
Yeah, he's
Looks,
130 pounds.
that is a big dog. You weren't kidding. Looks like the only looming question I see, Russ, is some folks curious about some of the membership management that you mentioned. Are you able to maybe like peel back the layer of that one kind of deeper thread and give folks a little bit of a clearer picture on what that looks like currently and in the future state?
Yeah, so just generally speaking, the membership management tools that we have, probably as you would expect, you can set up, you can build a criteria for who can be a member. You can define levels, let's just say like a gold, silver, bronze against those, and criteria that it would take to reach that. You can set up automations so that if a supporter takes an action that qualifies them for silver when maybe they're in bronze, like these types of things will just happen for you. You can set up like thank you emails, swag that you want to assign to that. If you want to get reporting on who is in all these levels, if you want audit of why did this person move up, why did this person move down, accordingly, like these are all sort of the pieces of membership management. As I mentioned before, it tends to be, and I think this is a good thing, you kind of set it up and then it's designed to just run kind of on an automated fashion for you. So what we find is a lot of our users will come in to either make some edits to it or some tweaks, or someone has a question, again, why did Russ move down to bronze? I thought I was silver, that type of thing. So you can do auditing with it. And so a lot of the work that we did is to make it easier to set up, understand like what are the trade-offs with these choices. We recommend this choice, but if you go this way, like this is why you might want to think about it. So help you make more informed choices there. But that's essentially what that is, and that comes with every action.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Russ. For everyone who is here today, really glad you joined. We hope this was helpful. Feel free to let us know in the chat if you'd like to see more of this style session, so you can understand what's coming in the future. We really appreciate you all being here and your engagement and questions with us today. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their Wednesday and a great rest of your week. And we hope to see you at our next webinar.